Whoa. Just when you get to understand a little bit about mystical numerology, this happens. And that can throw everything off whack. Well, not really off whack from understanding mystical numerology. But not only does this happen, but this happens. Sending everything that I said in the last video tumbling. These are called brackets. And my name is Gnobo, Brice, Calypso. Please call me Brice. And I am considered a master mystical numerologist. This is the beginning of the interpretation for May of 2015. And it starts with the brackets. Because actually 5 is May, and then we have 2, 1, and a 0. That's actually how it looks. But before I get ahead of you and myself, I'm going to explain the brackets. Brackets is my term. They're actually considered pillars from ancient numerology. If you picture a time when there's no distractions, no hindrances, no preoccupations, at a time where capitalism isn't so large, the industrial age didn't exist, at a time when people lived their life within the elements, looking at the elements, looking at the stars, the veils between one dimension and another were a lot thinner, our communications were greater, then you could kind of understand how numerology can be interpreted, evolve to be interpreted. But today there's so many distractions, so many hindrances, so many preoccupations, and there's so much capitalism that we're preoccupied in compressed individuality. So to really feel this usually takes extraordinary meditation or extraordinary training, which I've had. Not that I'm an extraordinary person. It just takes, greater. It's letting go of all that around us and then becoming more objective of our position on the planet. So, in May 2015, you will see 2 5s. These are considered pillars. Now, they're only considered pillars when they're yang patterns. And the reason why they're considered pillars is because the yang energy, which really can't be considered masculine energy, especially in Western society, because masculine energy is it's associated with genitalia and it has too many sexual connotations within it. So you can't say that's masculine. It's yang energy. Yang, yin and yang exist together. They're forces that complement one another, light and dark. Yang is very outwards. It's very physical. It's very expansive. It's very compassionate. It's very generating. It's always moving higher and faster, and it's where Yang's a little bit more subdued. Not that men should be more outward and women should be subdued, so you can't use masculine and feminine. Yin and yang actually exists in all living things. There's no separation. Just because a man's a man doesn't mean he's all man, because he does have yang, yin. He's yin and yang. Yin and yang, the principles of yin and yang exist in every living being on this planet, including trees, plants, flowers, mountains, water, everything. But yang, when it's interpreted in patterns like this, stands out as pillars. And in my craft, there is no greater or lesser. There's a higher or lower within frequency, but not greater and lesser. There's no such thing in nature. An ocean isn't greater than a mountain. A mountain's not greater than an ocean. A tree is not greater than a plant. Everything exists within its own expression to add to the whole. So there's really no greater or lesser. And where our stratification in this society came from, I have no idea. But it's actually pushing against the forces of nature, status, caste, class, things like that. I wear Prada, so therefore I'm greater than you, and it's an illusion. So in May of 2015, we have the pillars, and so these are the most prevailing, the highest frequency that is going to be felt in May. And actually, I should have my hair pulled out, because this is very high energy, very restless, very anxious. There's lots of movement. So, in actuality, when we look at May of 2015, it actually looks like this. 5, 5, 0, which is the Godhead or God source. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, Thunderbeat, and she likes the term source instead of force, saying that it generates. So I'll use source today. Anyway, and the main triad is a 2, 1, 3. Okay, so the 5s act as pillars because they're yang, and because they're very, very physical, strong physical energy. They are out there, moving very quickly. If you know anyone born on the 5th, they're out there. They're out in the world. They're expansive. Their energies shift very, very quickly. They're very restless, very anxious. Well, that's what the 5 does when it's vibrating in a particular organic being, or an overall vibration that's around us. It's very anxious, very restless. It seeks the new. It seeks for discovery. It's good marketing, good networking. It's so expansive. It's the 5 is actually considered the pentad, which is the star, and the 5 represents humanity. So when these two 5s are vibrating together, the question is, does it turn into a master number? Yes, it does. Because they don't have to, because they create pillars. They're vibrating so high that they vibrate together, and then the interpretation is in the master number of the 55. Not in the movement of this 5 moving in the 2, 1, 5. The 55 is the strongest energy for May of 2015, which encompasses the 21.3. It subsumes within it. So we'll talk about 21.3, because this is, if people who know me know that I absolutely adore people born on 21st. It's just this great energy, really great energy. It's always seeking new stimulation. It's fearless. It's vibrant. It's vivacious. It's courageous. It's loves attention. It's this huge communicating pattern. So the 55. When we look at the 55, this is considered a Thoth pattern, or Tajudi from ancient Egypt. Now you could say, depending on your religion, that this is governed by a god called Thoth. I don't believe in that. I believe that the 55 is a dimensional energy. It is a very high energy. that is brought through the earth, and then we interpret it as Thoth. But as one being encompassing all this energy is absolutely impossible. It's too large. So it is considered Thoth energy within the energy of expansiveness, writing, prophecy, and the main principle within the 55 is to connect with the mass consciousness, to look into the functioning of the mass consciousness. What is the mass consciousness doing? What does it need? Let me give you. I'll give you a worldly example. Adele, the singer Adele, she is a major 55, and this energy just streams through this woman. It just pours through her, and if her voice resonates with us, it resonates with so many of us. All the octaves and how she's able to use her voice. It's not. She's not seen as this individual singing on a perch like a bird. When she sings, she pulls everything up from inside of us, and we move into her voice. Everything about her melody, her harmony, her tone, everything is inside of us already, and she expresses this. This is what's so ingenious about Adele. This 55 pattern does deal with genius. It deals with a much higher intelligence. It deals with clairvoyance, clairsentient, clairaudience. So in May of 2015, this dimension is opened very, very, very high. And the energy is going to be extreme. Very anxious, very restless, people on the move, people on the go, all living things. Kind of like in the movie Koyaanisqatsi. You know, not that we should live that way. I mean, everything's just going to be moving very quickly. Watch out for addictions. Don't overdo in May. You know, use moderation. This is very important. Also, use techniques that involve repetition, which would be yoga, practicing mantras, exercise. Try to stay on a routine, because his energy is going to be strong. And what it can do, it can make us seem like we have too many irons in the fire. We're trying to accomplish too much. So it's good to have focus and discipline in this month. But see, the 5s go against routine. It goes against the mundane, and it's just exploratory. It just goes BAM! And people are out in the world, and they're trying new things. They're bringing out new things, the new discoveries. It involves variety. It involves diversity. It involves all cultures of people. But it moves around the functioning of the mass consciousness and how to move inside of this, become a part of this to help evolve. And that's what's so strong about the 55. Now, one of the ways to move in this is through the 21-3. And see, both these energies, the 3 and the 55, can become very scattered. So we have to be careful in May not to scatter, not to overload. And it's a month where a lot of people will overload. You know, they'll just burn out like a star. Because they're flying too high, like Icarus, just going way too high. Because they'll have this sensation, it will vibrate inside them. The movement is best within the 21-3, looking for new intellectual stimulation, bringing forth communications, having confidence and a fearlessness inside. You know, there's nothing within these patterns that are insecure at all. They're very confident yang patterns. The 3 is yang and the 5 is yang. The 2 is yin, and the 1 is highly androgynous. It moves both ways, because the 1 is a monad, and it exists right here as a dot. The 1 exists as a dot within the monad, and that's the expression of self going through the the creative source. So May of 2005 is pillared by the 2 5s. So when I interpreted April, we started with a triad, but when you have the pillars like this, the pillars come up and they vibrate very, very strongly and become the master number here. And then the first triad is a 21-3. If we turn this into a triad, it's a 10, which turns into a 1, which is this little dot here. So this, again, the 1 is innovation, it's pioneering, it's bringing something new, but into the mass consciousness. This doesn't bring in anything so far out there that people can't associate with it. You know, remember that we anthropologically, we're herd people, and we run in a herd, and we expect everything to be the same in the herd, which is, especially in this society, which is kind of, it goes against everything in nature. There's always new diversity, always variety, because everything's always moving to create new units. So this, the 1 goes in with the 21-3 here and here, which brings forth innovation, pioneering, being a maverick, and bringing this forth with great gregarious delight and communications. But the main thing we do want to look at is the master number of 55, which is a high intellectual pattern. It's governing us, but it doesn't mean we exist just in the brain, as we're taught. This is an energy streaming through us, but streaming through our heart as well, streaming through everything. And there always has, and it actually pours through our heart first, and then the messages are set up to the brain, and the brain and the heart have got to communicate. And they usually do, but we block it. So emotions and logos, pathos and logos are emotions, and practicality or pragmatism or whatever, rationale. So our emotions and our rationale have got to balance and communicate with each other. It's not a time to live solely in the mind, but also through the heart as well, which is the 3. So we are being pillared, but remember, there is no greater or lesser. This is a higher vibration in the now. It doesn't mean it will always stay a higher vibration, because there's higher dimensions. You know, it goes up to 100 in numerology, but it goes way beyond that in the Kabbalah. It just, the numbers just, it's infinity. They just keep going, like pi, keeps going and going and going and going. But this is a higher vibration in May, but it doesn't mean it's the highest. And when I say lower, it just vibrates on the lower. It's not like turning down a knob on a good stereo. You know, this is just, this is really high. So look into the mass consciousness, get out and network, do your marketing. This brings forth the principle of Ahimsa. That means that all living creatures are entitled to their happiness on the planet and free from violence. So this embraces all of the living, not just human beings. This energy isn't just for human beings, it's for all the living. So dogs and cats might be a little, you know. So live in it, have repetition, do mantras, do yoga, do a lot of breath exercises, but go out in the world, seek, explore, adventure, try new things. It's also very, very sentient and very sexual energy. It's high sensuality and high sexuality, so things are going to be, you know, pretty out there. Anyway, that's May of 2015. Please enjoy this month.